Okay, Alyssa, are we ready?
Not quite. We're still waiting on YouTube.
Okay. It says webinar is now streaming live on YouTube.
It's lying to you.
Okay. I hate when YouTube lies to me. I always find everything I find on YouTube to be accurate.
All right, we are ready.
Okay. All right, welcome everybody. It is July 23rd. This is a special session of the City of Glenwood Springs. We have two items on our agenda this evening. Both items relate to the major site plan review for the Belle Rippey multifamily unit apartment complex. We have some folks who are attending. I see a few people who have called in. If you've called in, please press *9 on your phone. That will allow you to raise your hand and for me to call on you. No, I'm sorry. Let me start again. We have already taken comment on this. Anybody who is calling in right now and observing this is just listening to our discussion based on the comments that we've already had. We'll go into this a little bit more, but Catherine, let's take roll.
Willman?
Here.
Voorhees?
Here. Thank you.
Here. Rosa?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Step?
Here.
Hershey?
Here.
All right, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are now at item 4. This is a continuation from our July 16th regular City Council meeting. As I was explaining before, we've already had the presentation from the developer and staff. We have heard the public comments. We have also received a number of comments via email, and I don't know if we had any voice or text message, but all the comments, I want to say all the comments that we have received up until about 15 minutes ago, we have all looked at, we have reviewed. Is there anybody on this call who has not reviewed the comments as they've come in throughout the week and throughout the day?
I've read them all.
All right, hearing none, I will just assume that we are all caught up and that we've have taken into account all of those comments as well.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, just to clarify the record that via head nod, all of council acknowledged that they had in fact reviewed all of the written comments that come in and were part of the packet, which was supplemented up to and including at about 6:33 today, the last set of comments, and that all of council has had an opportunity to review those. Historically, we had been reading those into the record, but I believe since council's all acknowledged that they have read those, that we are good as including those as part of the record at this point without reading them in. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, this is where I usually say I will bring it back now to council for further discussion and or a motion. This is where people put their hands up. Okay, Charlie, go ahead.
Okay, I've read a lot of the comments. I heard the statements of the developer last week, and I guess some of my thought is, my biggest concern, I think this option C is really a good option, much better than the plan approved originally for this area, for the neighborhood and for the city. But I am real concerned about the traffic flow, excuse me. And actually one of the suggestions I think I read today, one of the emails that came in today, I thought was really a good idea, which would be to make Blake, take the gate out where it is, but have Blake from 26th to 27th Street only be a one-way to the south. And I think with that, that would alleviate a lot of the concerns of people that would giving rise to additional traffic coming off of the open Blake gate and or coming out of the development. Originally, I was going to propose excuse me, I don't know, it's on my throat here. I was originally gonna propose all the way from 23rd to 27th be one way, but I think the circulation would be better if we just did that one block. I think that's better than the other potential solution, which would be putting moving the gate to the north side of 26th Street. So with that, I would be willing to support this project.
All right, Shelley.
I would like to speak a little bit to Charlie's comments. Just from what I read in the packet, it sounds like engineering is still intending on working out the details of traffic flow, possibly through more neighborhood meetings, that the temporary one-way on Blake would be temporary for the time being, and that, you know, a more finalized traffic flow and layout for the neighborhood would be figured out before the Blake Gate is actually open. And I guess I would support that, because I think there may be some traffic calming elements and ideas that can be put into play that might achieve the same thing or a very similar thing as one-waying Blake and slowing traffic, preventing cut-through traffic onto Palmer, but that, you know, we just haven't had time to explore all those different designs yet. So I would like to see us go ahead, if we decide to approve the project tonight, and open Blake Gate, but leave that condition, leave that flexibility in there for engineering to pursue the best solution for that. Otherwise, the only thing that I would like to see added to this application as far as a condition, if we do want to move to approve it tonight, I'd like to see an application that holds the developer to its parking variance and parking requirements. I believe there are 151 parking spaces proposed with the development, and that includes a reduction with the proximity to transit. And I would like to see a condition in there that if we start to run into seeing overflow parking along Blake or different avenues, and that becomes an issue, that we can go back to the developer. They've agreed that they will manage that parking through their lease arrangement, and that we can hold them to that number. So that's my comments right now. I guess I'll defer and wait to hear from the rest of council first.
Deborah, I'd love to, you've had your hand up, so jump in here with the may I's.
May I please let Jessica speak about what engineering is thinking?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that what Terry and I have discussed is that we need to take a more holistic view of everything, because if we just go to a one-way, yes, that's I think right now is what's on the table is for a temporary one-way until we can do improvements on Blake or come up with a better solution because of the condition of the roadway. But we need to make a more holistic approach. If we just one-way permanently forever, we could compound some issues somewhere else in the city that we may not be aware of. So I've put some counters out. I'm having some challenges with getting the data to compute correctly. But I think over the next few weeks, we're going to try to take some more counts and get a better idea of all of the counts that are currently out there. And then maybe, you know, we can take a look once the gate is open and make a better assessment as a group.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question of Jessica?
of course.
So Jessica, if we did something like said, whatever section we make one way, subject to later change by council on the recommendation of the engineering department, would that meet the concerns you would be aware, and Shelley might be to you too, but would that meet your concerns? I really don't want to allow this, my vote, I only can speak with one vote, allow this to be open with anyone but council having the right to change that one way.
I think the condition as it stands right now is that it's a one-way temporarily until the city can have neighborhood meetings and come up with a better solution as a whole. So until we can make improvements on that roadway, I believe that's what planning and zoning had proposed and what was proposed previously.
Yeah, and Charlie, I mean, it's your right of way, so you can make changes to it as you see fit moving forward. You know, I think that's the case with the Blake Gate, and that's the case with future potential traffic calming once the circulation of the entire neighborhood is reviewed in greater detail.
I agree, and I think there's a number of citizens, and that's why I raised the question, who are concerned because I think past promises were made. And I don't want the citizens to think that we have said, okay, engineering, whatever you decide, just go ahead and do. I want it to come back to council. That's my concern. So thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Paula.
So for me, we're here to represent the citizens of our community. So I'm going to read a little because it was easier to me to kind of put my thoughts down, but we want to make thoughtful and considerate decisions that affect our people and our neighborhoods. And number one, I'm really concerned that we've been kind of pushed along on this, and P&Z was pushed along on this on the timeline of the developer's interest and not the town's interest and the community's interest. I think that I hope we don't encounter this kind of thing in the future when we're looking at a development, that we have the time to really thoughtfully consider and allow the town to participate at the level they need to. And I'm also concerned that our alternative to approving this development tonight, which kind of hangs over our head, is if we don't approve this tonight, then they'll just start with the previous approval of a development, which apparently the neighborhood is very against, and we're very unhappy when that first round happened. So this all kind of feels like we're in a pressure cooker for a bit. That being said, this new version of the Bell Rippey development, version C, has really made efforts to appease the neighborhood in its design and many of the concerns of people living next to the development, except for parking and traffic. There are a small number of spaces available for 100 households. I want to emphasize that's households. So that's a lot of times roommate situations or couples who work at various different places. So yes, we do have access to Roaring Fork Transit, but as we all know, and we're looking at right now again, COVID has made a huge impact on this. And for a while, we even considered not having any transit available in town. And it's still a limited transit opportunity. So who's to know when those kind of things come up? You know, unfortunately, we're not DC or New York or Chicago, where you can easily jump on a subway and get to your work and go to your leisure activities. We're a completely different story. We're a rural community. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we figure out these parking latitudes that we give. Also, if the 1.5 doesn't work for residents there, and even though they sign papers with the development, there are going to be situations with roommates and couples that there is going to be extra cars out there. And as Shelley said, we really need to look at this and say, are we impacting these neighborhoods that already are impacted by overflow parking from RAFTA and residents of Oakhurst and Blake and Palmer accessing these parking places that are currently there? We're asking the neighborhoods to bear the brunt of increased traffic. And I hear it whether you live on Blake between 23rd and 26th, or you live at Oakhurst on that 26th Street, or you live on Palmer. And then that reaches all the way downtown into Blake and Bennett and possibly even to Cooper, but Cooper luckily has a one-way street. So they've got a little of a buffer there. And I don't think any of us in any of our neighborhoods around town want to be an alternate to Highway 82. I think, yes, we moved here and we accepted that there's a corridor that goes through the main downtown area, and it's Highway 82, and we know that and we live with that. But to say we're going to take certain neighborhoods and they're going to sacrifice the ability to walk down the street and walk their dog, or their children to walk across the street and visit their friend, or just somebody riding their bike to get from one place to another. so that we can find an alternate route for additional traffic. I think we should all be taking into consideration. It may not be expedient or efficient, but when the city, and thank you, Jessica, I'm glad that this is coming back up. But we can't always look at, is this an engineering project? Or is this how we create a neighborhood? And is this how we create a community? I think all of us, whatever issues have come before us, whether it's VRBOs or developments or whatever it is, we all look at it and go, how does this impact me in my neighborhood? And how does this impact you in your neighborhood? And we've made decisions in the past on that. And I think we really have to look at that when we're making this consideration for this. And thank you, Charlie. I do like the idea that the city council will make decisions on how this traffic flow ends up in the long run, even with our temporary solutions. The problem right now in these neighborhoods is not just the flow of traffic, it's the condition of the streets. You go, and I don't know if anybody on staff or city council has an opportunity to drive on these streets, but they're in terrible condition. 26th Street and Blake between 23rd and 26th Street are basically one-way streets that we accommodate two-way traffic, parking, people trying to walk down them, and increasing the flow there is going to be awful. 23rd Street itself between Grand Avenue and Blake Street is just a mess right now. And I'm getting complaints from people in this ward saying, when is that going to be fixed because of so much damage to that street? And I know that we have a street plan, and I know that that's part of our big plan into the future, but now we're looking at impacting this even more, and extra traffic on those streets is going to make a difference, and they're going to deteriorate more rapidly. So if this development is approved tonight to address the timing limit that our developers have, I'd like to see a commitment from our city staff and our council to address these concerns of the people who live in these neighborhoods. I just think it's important, no matter where you live in Glenwood, that you feel you have a home and that you as a citizen are being acknowledged. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Paula. Councilor Hershey, you're up.
I really have to disagree with Paula. Your representative owes you not his industry only, but his judgment, and he betrays instead of serving you if he sacrifices it to your opinion. And I understand that we represent the people, but I don't know where Councilor Stepp was at the last meeting, but it's pretty clear in 2018 that these developers got an approval for something, and the neighbors, for the most part, support change. There are always going to be people like NIMBYs or Bananas that build absolutely nothing anywhere near anybody who don't want change. And I certainly don't want this community to look like Vail or to have all this building, but this project is going to get built. So if we vote no tonight, I think the developers have made it very clear that they'll go forward with the approvals they have. That being said, Paula raises some important points about streets. Those all need to be addressed. The areas around Palmer and Blake there have to be fixed. Those streets have to be improved. I think that this one-way street is going to be a very temporary thing. It's not going to work, and it's going to get changed by us or by a future council. If Charlie were to have made a motion, I would support, though, what he's talking about with that one-way street, or if someone would make a motion similar to that, I would definitely support that. We have to go forward tonight with this because the alternative is a project that nobody wants, instead of a project that nobody's particularly happy with, but some people want and some people will like and some people will be happy with. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Rick. Rick Voorhees.
Yes, this is me.
Welcome back.
Yeah, if there wasn't a default mute on, my life would be so much easier, but I understand the reason for the default mute. So, we did vote several years ago to make Blake a one-way in that area. And so I don't know if our vote tonight is ratifying that or undoing that, and it probably is swept into everything we're talking about. But the streets there, Paula's correct, so is Mr. Hershey. are deplorable. And we really do need to think about, at a minimum, making sure that they're safe for pedestrian traffic and vehicle traffic. And we did have a plan. We had a plan a couple of years ago to actually bring this before the voters and to ask them to make a minor increase in sales tax that would allow us the resources to do this all over town. And so I just want to remind council that we have, in the words of some people, shot our wad this year with the money that we spent on streets. And we still have an obligation, I think, to our citizens to provide safe public conveyance. Our infrastructure in places is, as we've seen, problematic. Sidewalks are needed in places where we do not have them. And the city is sort of broke in a financial sense. And it doesn't look like our sales tax revenues are going to be coming back anytime soon in a way that's going to support the kind of infrastructure that we would all like. So I would say that I'm looking forward to our discussion on infrastructure. I think it's going to be sort of painful. There just isn't any money that's sitting there doing nothing that we can put towards infrastructure. And so coming attractions, I'm going to support Charlie's talk. I don't know if it was a motion yet, but I think that we do have a housing crisis. We do have the best alternative, I think, the neighborhood would agree with this project. And we also have a one-way street that I believe we approved several years ago, and we're probably reapproving tonight. I would be reluctant in the future to try to make that a two-way street. I think the one-way street's a good compromise at this point. And that's the way that I read all the email that I've been sent. And I want to thank everybody for their candor and bringing these issues forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. And Carl, just as a point of interest, the actual agenda item that we have in front of us right now is for item number 4, it's for rezoning. We probably need to take a motion and a vote on the rezoning before we get
Yeah, there's 2 actions you're taking. One is action on the ordinance, which this whole has been wrapped up. Its public hearing has been wrapped up and everything else. So it's a motion and an adoption or denial of the rezone. And then after that is the second motion on the, I'm losing the term of art. Help me out, Trent. I can't get it.
Site and architectural plan review, Major.
Site and architectural plan review. I'm still grounded in the last code. I apologize.
all right. Well, just to, I guess, clear the deck, can I get a motion, if there is one, specifically on the item that's we're in theory having a conversation about the rezoning, and then we can continue council comments. So does anybody want to make a motion on just the rezoning part? Charlie, go ahead.
I would move to approve ordinance number 20, series of 2020, of rezoning 2710 Blake Avenue from residential RH residential high density to RT residential transitional, and uphold the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and approve that rezoning subject to the findings and conditions outlined on page 1 of the July 23rd, 2020 suggested motions included in the staff report pack.
I'll second the motion.
All right, so moved by Charlie, seconded by Shelley. Further conversation specifically on the rezoning. All right, seeing none, Catherine, please call the question.
Davis,
Yes.
Step,
Yes.
Hershey,
Yes.
Willman,
Yes.
Voorhees,
Yes.
Kaup,
Yes.
Godus.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Back to council comments. Shall I see your hand up? Is it additional comments or questions?
It's to make a motion,
Okay.
just to put a motion on the table if we're ready.
Can I just point out a couple things that I heard? One being that there was concerns about parking. I heard that at your last meeting, and I did draft a potential condition that would give staff the ability to accept a plan from the applicants as well as enforce that later if there was a problem in the future after full build out. I also did want to make one point. There's been a lot of conversation about the cleanup of an adjacent parcel and the necessary access to get to that parcel. I've worked with the applicant on that one as well to provide for an emergency access easement that would also allow, the city in cooperation to get to the adjacent property to remove refuse and hazardous waste. So I can share those with you on the screen if you would like to see those, but just want to point that out.
Yes.
Do folks want to see that?
I would like to see those.
Okay. Yeah, Trent, if you can share your screen, that'd be great.
And Trent, this is in addition to the memo you sent out this afternoon late.
It is.
I think so.
Yeah, correct, Charlie. And I just I wanted to make sure that it was something that you were still interested in. And I've heard that comment and wanted to point out the access issue before sharing it with you. Yeah. And that would be these two conditions here. 11 and 12. Can you
We
see
lost
those?
something, Trent.
You've got the wrong thing up, Trent.
You had it up right and correctly and you changed something.
Oh, sorry, it didn't show that was what was showing on my end. Okay, how about now? Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Okay,
Could
sorry,
you zoom in on that, please?
sure can. I got 3 screens going here and it's hard to know which one's showing where, but
Great, that's great.
So Trent, thank you for that information. Do you have a recommendation if we would want to do the one-way in Blake as I suggested? How would that be a change in the application? I'm trying to remember how that was structured in the application.
yeah, further up in what you do have, and I can scroll up to that one as well, Charlie. We are recommending a temporary one-way from 24th to 26th on Blake, in addition to the opening of the gate. But
Right.
I-
So for 1C, I think.
Yeah.
that sounds correct. That would be here in top of the page there. Hopefully you can see it.
So Charlie, are you just asking if we just added that plan be brought back to council for approval? Would that meet your?
Well, I think we should do it 26th to 27th because I think if you do 24th to 26th, people.
Charlie,
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are we? I would love to hear from folks who haven't yet commented. If we're,
All right.
I just don't want to
Oh,
get
yes,
into
we-
back and forth. And if there's specific questions for Trent about this, that's fine. But I just don't want us to get into a back and forth and hashing it out and designing from the dais.
No, Shelley asked me a question if on this, and that wasn't what I intended. So never mind.
Okay, are we ready for a motion or do you want to wait?
I would like to hear from. Yeah, I'd love just to hear from the last 2 folks who haven't commented yet. And then I absolutely bring it back to you, Shelley, for your motion. Go ahead, Steve.
I just feel like I don't care what happens. There's a lot of people that aren't going to be happy. The inevitable thing here, and certainly in Glenwood, since I've been here for 30 years, that change is inevitable. This project is going to happen. The gate's going to open. I honestly don't know what the compromises were. I wasn't around when the gate was put in initially. I know that it is a real pain for everybody on the west side of the Roaring Fork River trying to get to the marketplace. We all have to get on Highway 82 to, and then dart over to, and it's a very dangerous condition. I think the gate should be open. The gate's going to be open. That's inevitable. What I don't like about this conversation is that we're going to, as a result of that, have a one way that's just going to be temporary. And at what point do you then change it again? As Rick Voorhees often says, it's very hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. I think that we should go ahead and open the gate, not today, but this year. And I think we should study traffic flows as a result of that and quit sitting here and trying to guess what impacts are going to happen where, which is exactly what we've been doing. Everybody up on Palmer disagrees with having a one-way on Blake that funnels all the traffic up to Palmer, and I agree with that. I don't know that it's going to have a great impact to that neighborhood at all. I don't know that I'm going to drive down that through that neighborhood just because that gate's open. I am going to be able to get to and from my house and to the marketplace a hell of a lot safer than I can today. So, you know, if it was my motion to make a motion that we get the gate open before the end of the year, and that quality check on what impacts are going to occur, and we make decisions to mitigate those impacts at that point in time, rather than sitting here trying to just pitch darts at what we really don't know.
Thank you,
Somebody
Steve.
give me a second and I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. So what is your motion, Steve?
My motion would be to open the Blake Gate before the end of the year. It gives us an opportunity to do some asphalt work up there. You know, it's nothing you can schedule today or this month, but what's going to happen is the asphalt plants will shut down, you know, when the weather turns cold, and you won't get another opportunity to get up there before April. And that we request that our engineering department or our streets department studies the impacts and brings back to us solutions to mitigate those impacts. And maybe that'd be to make a one-way, or maybe it's to leave it open two ways. It's a long rambling motion. You want me to clean that up?
Please, yes.
I'd make
If I
here.
Could I get some clarity on if you're making a motion only specific to the Blake Gate, or if you are
Only specifically to the Blake Gate? I would make a motion to open that gate this year, and I would make a motion to leave the traffic running two-way as it is currently.
I will second that. Been moved by Steve, seconded by me. Further conversation on that motion. And I guess I will maybe make my comments, because I haven't had comments yet, because I think a lot of this is kind of tied in. Steve, I agree. I'd like to see that gate opened and actually decoupled. The last time we had this conversation, for the benefit of Paula and Charlie and Tony, who weren't there in 2018, I think, when we did this, the opening of Blake Gate was tied to the development getting done. I think that the community and the neighborhood probably have a grudging acceptance. Well, it's an acceptance in the larger community, I think, but I think it's a grudging acceptance that this is going to happen. And I think it's fine to decouple the opening of Blake Gate to this development. Whether it is, you know, two-way or one-way, but I do agree that if we make it one way, it probably won't go back. And then I think it does impact the residents of Palmer. And I would like to see a little bit more thought and discussion, because the letters we have gotten, I feel, have been 50-50. Well, 40-40. 40% to make Blake one way, 40% to not make it one way for the benefit of the residents on Palmer, and 20% just keep the gate. And so I think the other comments I want to make as well, I'm on a roll, so I don't have to come back, is, if we do one-way Blake, that the losers in this will be for the traffic on Palmer. I think they're correct. It'll drive more traffic up that way. And Paula, to your point about the parking, if we don't pass this tonight, we can go back to the 79 units that were approved. And because it's 79 units, now it's 6 less bedrooms. So probably the density or the people don't really change at all. But because of 79 units, the way our code is the parking requirements would be a lot more generous. And that previous iteration, which the developer said they will fall back on, had enough parking that they did not need any kind of variance. They didn't even need the allowance because of the proximity transportation. I believe is 1.7 spots per unit because of the lower units, but higher number of bedrooms. There's just more 3-bedroom units. So if the concern really is the parking, we can go back to a condition where we had like 1.7. But in practicality, it doesn't actually do anything because it's about the same number of people anyway. And I would say to the people who said that their promises were made 30 years ago to keep that Blake Gate closed forever, I would really dispute that. I don't know, I wasn't there. And there's several people probably out there that were out there to hear that. So I might be completely wrong when I say this, but if that was truly the case, the city, if they wanted to make that promise, would have abandoned the right of way. And we did not do that. We didn't even plow the road. We didn't put planters. We literally put up a $500 metal gate that's been there. So to say that that was a promise made that it would never be open, I find hard to believe. And again, 90% of the people that are in this neighborhood now are people that promise was not made to, if that was a promise, because it just changed over and there's new people. And we have a lot of longtime residents that have been there forever. So I don't want to dismiss that at all. And then lastly, to Steve Davis's point, getting out of the Roaring Fork Marketplace and trying to go over 4 lanes. You take a right turn into the bus lane, you then merge into the regular lane, and then you have to get all the way over to the left-hand turn lane. If you're doing that during rush hour, you're taking your life into your hands, and it will be. The problem I have with 2-way or 1-way Blake Avenue is it is much safer from a traffic standpoint for me from Walmart during high traffic to go through there, not cut through because I'm a commuter going to Silver Rifle, but me as a resident, and this is my street as a resident, it's all of our streets, the resident street. It's not the street that is owned or gets to be decided by people from Rifle or Silt or the commuters that commute through our town. But I do have a say on that. And I would like to be able to use a surface street to get to 27th Street to wait for that light. So then I can then cross in a safe manner instead of trying to go 4 lanes left. So if we're having a conversation about Blake Gate, I guess that's why I seconded Steve, is I think it should be 2 ways, because for a lot of people that are trying to get over to a large part of our town, that's really dangerous for it to stay 1 way. And to force people onto 82 and have more congestion temporarily, I don't know that alleviates a whole lot. So I guess those are my considerations and thoughts on the whole topic of Blake Gate, which I think this is what it's turning into. I'll let everybody else have responses to that now. I got Shelley, Paula, and Charlie. Go ahead, Shelley.
Well, I had my hand up for a different reason. I'll go ahead and speak to this. So it sounds like the motion is to decouple the Blake Gate question from this development. So does that mean we would remove the condition? It's on the applicant that refers to the Blake Gate, which was for the 1-way. Sounds like we would be doing that also. And I guess, I don't have a problem decoupling it. I'm curious to hear from staff as to whether that timeline to open it before the end of the year and get it opened and moving, it was always, the concept was always that we would get this figured out on how to do it right. Because I really feel like if we're going to open Blake Gate, we need to do it right and have the best solution that we think will mitigate the cut through traffic through those neighborhoods. If we just open it right now and wait and see what happens, we're basically saying those neighborhoods are going to be subject to whatever happens for the next few months. And when we're able to, we'll try to mitigate that. I don't know that I can support that solution. And I'm wondering if staff really has the capacity to deal with that in this short time frame between now and when the asphalt plants close.
Deborah, that's a great question. Could you speak, or could you have someone speak to a little bit of that?
I believe both Jessica and Matt have opinions on this. Why don't we start with Jessica?
Matt may hopefully agree with me. I think that I think the condition is fine. I just think that it should be made maybe contingent to us being able to make improvements to that road, especially the connection between where the gate is actually located. I don't believe it's fully paved there. And trying to put traffic on that without doing any improvements would probably pose a pretty high maintenance cost over the winter. And all those improvements do come at a price. And I think our budget's pretty limited this year.
Matt,
I guess that
agree?
means it's my turn.
Yes.
I think if you were going to open the gate, get rid of the gate, that the curb and gutter on the west side of it probably needs to be connected together. We need to have a conversation with RAFTA about where they're parking buses for their lay down time, which is what they're using it for. And you could accommodate probably the curb and gutter in some shoulder over there to move the buses to. And then there is a decent section of asphalt in between the two at the gate, which is kind of broken up because it's been driven on so many years when the gate is open on the other side. So, you know, it definitely needs some improvement out there prior to this happening. And want to remind everybody that Belle Rippe still needs to attach to some utilities in that roadway section. At some point, they have curb and gutter they're building on the east side and a sidewalk, so they'll have to abut to potentially some new asphalt down there. So I guess it's doable by the end of the October, you know, October 20th and the beginning of November is kind of when the asphalt plants shut down. So we'll just have to start working on who's going to pay for it and in what process we're going to do it. It's not going to be an overly cheap endeavor to do it. We'll call it right. So I just want to make that point, I guess.
All right. You guys probably want to hold the line because I'm sure there's going to be some more questions for you. Paula, go ahead.
So I don't think this is the right time to be opening Blake Gate. And one of the reasons I don't think it's the right time, because if this development is passed tonight, they are using that area for construction access. So all of a sudden you open Blake Gate and you've got construction access, and I think you're going to have a very bad traffic problem trying to do two things at once, on top of what Matt and Jennifer, right? Jessica, sorry, what Matt and Jessica have spoke to already about the cost to us. We don't have the money right now in our budget that's been cut back this year in 2020. It also doesn't answer to the number of concerns that are out there by residents in the neighborhood and the impact. All it does is exacerbate the situation.
Okay. Charlie.
I have a question and a comment. Trent, the question's for you. As part of the approval of the development, who's responsible for taking the gate down and fixing that roadway in there?
Well, the city's responsible for opening the gate. What improvements are made, I guess that would be, you know, city decision as, you know, budgets allow.
But if I guess my question, and maybe you answered it, I just want to make sure I understand. So what you said is, if we open the gate now, or we open the gate after the developer's done with all their construction traffic and things, it's still gonna be our responsibility to do whatever we need to do to make that portion of Blake appropriately usable.
Correct.
All right, well, my comment is, I'm sorry, somebody else, Jessica, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess I haven't read the recent design proposal, but the former one I thought the developer made those improvements.
Well, improvements for traffic calming or one-way directional. I think Charlie's referring to maybe what Matt was indicating needed to be fixed with the curb and gutter and the pavement.
Oh, I guess I thought it was that section of Blake that needs improved in the curb and gutter along their property and the sidewalk. I think that was all on them.
Yes, yeah. Matt also mentioned that adjacent to their property, correct. I was thinking, sorry, south of the gate.
The developer would have to fix the curb and gutter along their side of Blake Street, the east side of Blake Street. Okay.
Sorry, can I just ask, jump in real quick?
Sure,
But
yeah.
just to get clarity here. So the developer right now would have to fix just curb and gutter adjacent to their property. They wouldn't have to be responsible for the surface of any, because I believe that the last proposal, there was a sticking point on 26th Street improvements on that. So can you, Trent, just talk about what the obligations of the developer are? Sorry, Charlie, to hijack your comment.
They would be replacing, roadway sections that they disturbed for utility connections. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
That's all right. So I guess my comment is I don't want to decouple them because I think we need to have it one way. I don't think we need to experiment with this or the neighborhood. Actually, they could come all the way down into Ward 3 where I am. And so I don't think we should decouple them. And I agree with Paula. I heard the developer say last week at our meeting that they're going to do construction traffic. And I think it would be one, we put money into improvements and you get a lot of heavy traffic and construction equipment in there that would be destroying that surface. So I just don't see decoupling be the right move, number one. Number two, if one way is permanent, it's permanent. I don't think it is, but if you guys think it's going to be permanent, I guess it's up to you to make that decision. What I see is, I've been here, as you all know, a long time. And when I started going to Aspen, I could come in, I wouldn't have to go through the S-curves. I could go through the neighborhoods to get to the courthouse. Well, they've gotten rid of that, and that protected the neighborhoods from me and everybody else that wanted to do that. I think we have that same duty to our citizens on the east side of town to protect them from pass-through traffic. I don't think we experiment with that. I think Aspen showed that people will, and we know that from the bridge closure, people will find another way to go through there. And so without a one-way or some significant, traffic calming, not just in that area, but possibly all the way down Blake, I think we're creating a nightmare for the east side of town. So I'm not going to support the motion.
Rick.
Well, I'm not sure I can add any sanity to this discussion other than to say that we already have on the books agreement that this would be a one-way. I would fully support looking at this after we vote on the development, whether it should be a two-way. I don't know that I would support that, but I think that that's a discussion that we probably ought to have. So the one-way is already baked in. I'm happy with decoupling that if that would be the will of the council. I'm not sure I'm ready to vote on making it a two-way tonight, but I might be, in 2 weeks, I might be in 4 weeks. But my golden egg sort of question here would be that if the city is bereft of the resources to really address Blake Street in this neighborhood, including the infrastructure, including the possibility of fiber, but sewer and water pretty much. And we're sort of at our ledger's end, if you will. I'm going to put Stephanie on the spot here and just ask if there would be a possibility of any contribution from the developer to help fix that street, either a small contribution. I'm not talking about the whole thing, but we're shooting in the dark a little bit about what all of this is going to cost in a COVID budget area. and I don't expect an affirmative answer, Stephanie, but I think it's a question worth asking. I think the public would have some skin in wanting to know whether that would be a possibility.
I appreciate the question. I think like you, of course, we'd be willing to look at this and contribute if we could, if we can. This is investors' money, so we have to we have to make sure that we are creating the economics that we've committed to them to. That said, we are also not trying to create large upside against that. So we are nailing down our cost as we speak, and we would be open to considering that if we had more understanding of what the scope of that would be, without question. I mean, it's not our intention to, again, we're going to be here for 10 plus years. We want to make this better for our own residents as well. And
Okay.
I'm sorry to give an ambiguous answer. We just so hard to know whether if that's $10 or $1 million. We just don't know yet.
Right. And thank you for letting me ask you a totally unprepared question out of the blue. I appreciate that. So.
Is that all, Rick?
That's it.
All right. And I guess I'll respond real quick. I think it's a fair question to ask. I'd love to shake down everybody at the end of the day. I know that's what we weren't trying to do, but that's a hard question to ask. Steve, just for clarity's sake, to move things along, I think I'm feeling a little resistance to this motion. Would you be open to a friendly amendment that allows, because I think Paula, there still is conflict, and I think Paula spoke to it, between Blake and Palmer and some neighborhood consternation. And I think no one is suggesting we open it tomorrow. But Steve, what would you think about saying, you know what, this gate's going to be open by the end of the year? That's 5 months from now. Staff, go hold a neighborhood meeting, come back, make a recommendation between maybe take it to Transportation Commission, see if they have a suggestion. Obviously, we have some very capable engineers with Jessica and Terry that can comment on these things and provide maybe a better holistic view of what we're looking at. But if we're getting hung up on one way versus two ways, or temporary versus not, I think I would amend my second to say, if you would amend your motion to say by the end of the year, Blake Gate gets open, pending more community outreach, and then it'll come back to us to decide at some point whether it's one way or two way. What say you, Steve?
Well, I would certainly entertain any amendment to a motion that would result in a positive thing for this community. I think the Blake Gate issue is a huge issue, not just for that neighborhood, but for the entire community. And it's an important thing to get beyond. We've been debating this. I think I've been on council, feels like 12 years, but it's only 5.5. And we've debated this since the beginning, and I suspect we're going to continue to debate it for a long, long time. But so yes, amend the motion any way you want. We need to actually take some kind of an action to get this thing done. I do not suggest, and I have to comment, that I expect this entire street to be rebuilt. You're talking to a guy that moved on to Midland when it was a gravel road. So I've seen a lot of change in this community, and with some change, like opening a gate, then you will see change like streets being rebuilt and eventually curb and gutter, and someday a sidewalk, but you got to go one step at a time. And it's not fair to this community to continue to subject us to not having this completed part of the grid. So says Terry Parch. That's
All
a
right.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Shelley.
I am just looking for a little bit of clarity on what's actually required on the street construction. And are we going to have interference? Are we going to have, is it going to be an issue during construction if that part of the street is opened? If, because I do remember reading in the packet, as Paula mentioned, that there was a construction staging area in there. So maybe between Trent and Jessica, they can verify that. And then is there a portion of Blake, north from the gate to 27th that is the responsibility of the developer? Or as Steve just said, will that just be kind of in the state that it's in now, since it's going to be dug up for utilities and things like that? So can staff clarify that for me a little bit, please?
So I think Blake was improved where the RAFTA BRT station, when it was installed in that section. So it would be the section past the RAFTA facility to make that connection to Walmart that needs the improvements along it. There's some curb and gutter that was called out, sidewalks, as well as some asphalt replacement for the utility tie-ins.
Okay, I just can't remember what exactly is in there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about the construction staging?
I think that would be better answered by the applicant. You mean for this specific project, Shelley?
Yes. So it's not in that area of closed off Blake there.
Stephanie?
Mike Foster, can you answer?
Yeah, this is Mike Foster. And that is the access point that we were going to be bringing the construction traffic or construction access was through the gate to Palmer and up. No staging in that area. Staging was going to be on our property, but the access was going to come from the south.
Okay, great. That helps. Thank you very much.
So Mike, just a quick question. So is it more advantageous for that gate to be open for you, or do you not care at all if that gate is open or closed while you're going through the construction?
I don't know if I want to say I don't care.
Does it matter?
I think it would be safer, if it was only construction traffic. But I understand the idea of opening it now to be able to study it. So I think we were thinking that gate could move from its current location to the north side of Palmer, right there at Palmer and Blake, just so our construction traffic could access it. So move it basically 100 yards from its current location north on Blake to where Palmer would cut in.
Do you mean 27th and Blake? Or yeah, 27th.
Roughly 27th. But Palmer comes into Blake between the gate and 27th today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see no more hands up and no one's talking. So there is a motion by Steve. I second it. Let's take action on that motion. Does anybody need to hear that motion again? Rick, great. And Trent.
Staff would like to hear you.
I'm giving you a big hand here. Okay.
All right, I got you.
So that we know what we're doing.
All right, Steve, go ahead.
Oh, really? You want me to repeat all that?
Yes.
Does that include the amendment to the motion? So I think
Yes.
the motion is to go ahead and open the Blake Gate this year. Jonathan, help me.
Pending community outreach meetings to bring back the decision to council, whether it is a one-way or a two-way, and staff's recommendations.
Yes. Thank you.
Catherine, could you call the question?
Willman,
No.
Voorhees,
Yes. Sorry.
Kaup,
No. Sorry.
Davis,
Yes.
Godas,
Yes.
Stepp,
No.
Hershey,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, I think we got the easy stuff out of the way. Now we are actually on to any further comments and or motion about the agenda item number 5, which would be the approval of the, Trent, help me out here, but it's all that stuff. The approval of the project.
Major site
I
architectural
would
plan.
move to approve planning item 04-20, consideration of a major site/architectural plan review, rezoning from RH. Oh,
Second.
yeah, these motions are
Second.
Identical.
identical. Yes, so I'm going to have to stop for a minute and go back and read something else. So if someone else wants to make the motion, is better prepared.
I have my hand up, Jonathan.
Yes. I'm sorry, Shelley. Knock
That's
yourself
okay.
out.
I would move to uphold recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission and approve the major site architectural plan review application for construction of 100 multifamily and duplex units as amended in option C with the findings and conditions outlined on pages 1 through 3 of July 23rd, 2020 suggested motions. And I would like to include the 2 conditions that were presented by Trent tonight for the parking management per approval of staff and oh dear, what was the second one?
You were going so good.
so
That was a
close.
great motion.
What was the second one, Trent? There was another one. Well, I'm thrown off now because I'm
Parking.
gonna.
Parking and access. Access to the
and
adjacent properties.
emergency
for refuse.
access to the adjacent property. Yeah. And I was going to include the thing about Blake Gate, but we don't need to do that now. So I think that is the only 2 that we need to include. as
I'll second that.
Additional conditions.
Sorry.
Did you get that second, Tony?
Whoever wants it, it's fine. I don't care. But
You
I'd
got
like
it.
to second it. Thank you.
You got it. All right, Shelley. Motion by Shelley, second by Tony. That was a heck of a motion, Shelley. Thank you. Charlie.
Shelley, the conditions include 1C, which says the applicant is responsible for improvements necessary to temporarily restrict access on the one-way southbound. Are you saying that we're not going to put that in, or we are? And how does that relate to the motion that was just approved?
Right. I'm wondering if that motion is kind of mute now because of the motion that just passed previously.
I guess my suggestion is going to be is if we determine at some time in the future that we're going to make it one way, that condition, if it existed when the development was getting ready for approval, that they would have to make those improvements at their cost.
Right. And I think that's a good point, and we should probably revise that 1C to fit the current status.
I would suggest that you could simply add to the end of 1C, all of that, if determined as necessary by City Council after study of the Blake Gate reopening.
I'll accept that.
The second accepts that. Seconder accepts that.
Okay. Any other comments, questions on that motion? Paula. You're muted, Paula. Sorry.
Just want to reiterate these are huge changes and there are concerns of the citizens of this neighborhood and other areas of town. I mean, some of the comments I've got were not only from this area. I appreciate what Jonathan and Steve said about safety on the Blake Gate part of things, but at the same time, there are alternatives for them. There's not only one access out of the Roaring Fork Marketplace. And this just kind of threw everything back into a beginning state for these neighborhoods, restarting these community meetings and addressing things that are unresolved. So it's really difficult to approve a development on the tail side of this. And I do want to say to the developers, though, I really appreciate the time and effort you took to listen to the community and try to address their concerns and coming up with your version C. I think that you made a lot of people happy with the changes that you made. And I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Charlie?
Yeah, I'm going to support this motion and this development. I think option C is much better than the old plan. And the comment earlier made about timeline, I agree with Paula. It's tough that we were in this timeline, but it's a really weird time because of the, Stephanie could probably help me with the term, but the money that's available because of what's the money?
Opportunity zone.
Yeah, opportunity zone. Thank you, Stephanie. I think it's really unique for them, and this is a much better development than the development approved back in 2018 for the neighborhood. Also telling you, I'm not going to agree in any time this year until somebody can convince me otherwise. That not having one way between 26 and 27 isn't the best way to protect our neighborhood, which I think we need to do for the overall good of the city.
All right. Catherine, let's call the question.
Stepp,
No.
Hershey,
Yes.
Godus,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Willman,
Yes.
Voorhees.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Congratulations, Stephanie, Mr. Foster. We really appreciate the work that you've done with the neighborhoods and getting us to a point where hopefully you can move forward with this. So thank you, and Michael Connor, we appreciate it as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for expediting this too. It really is important to the project. So thanks for scheduling this special meeting tonight.
We look forward to partnering with you guys throughout this construction and going forward as a major landowner and landlord in our town. So thank you guys, and we'll, I'm sure, keep having conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you. All right. Seeing as we have no other items on tonight's agenda, does anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
I would like to lobby for about 3 or 4 hours about Blake before.
Seeing none. Seeing none.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.